On November 29, 1947, the UN proposed to divide the British Palestine Mandate into an Arab state, a Jewish state, and the city of Jerusalem. Arab leaders rejected this plan, leading to the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The day after Israel declared its statehood, surrounding Arab armies invaded. Egyptians advanced from the southeast, while Jordanian and Iraqi forces captured the Central Highlands. Syria and Lebanon battled Israel in the north. Despite being newly formed, the Israel Defense Forces halted the Arab advance and soon began pushing them back, capturing more territory. By the war's end, Jordan took control of the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, while Egypt held the Gaza Strip. On April 3, 1949, Israel and Jordan signed an armistice agreement, forever altering the region's landscape. This conflict set the stage for decades of tension and wars. Gaza, December 1987. A fuse was lit, leading to the First Intifada. Two seemingly unconnected events set Gaza ablaze. On December 6th, an Israeli was murdered. Just 4 days later, a tragic car accident killed 4 Palestinians. Rumors of revenge swirled, fueling anger. Violence erupted in Gaza, spreading like wildfire to the West Bank and East Jerusalem. For over 6 years, lulls and explosions of conflict marked the landscape. In the first 4 years, Israeli forces faced over 3,600 Molotov cocktail attacks, 100 hand grenade assaults, and 600 incidents involving guns or explosives. The toll was heavy, 27 dead and over 3,000 wounded. While groups like Hamas and Islamic Jihad played roles, Yasser Arafat's PLO dominated, using leaflets to orchestrate attacks. The First Intifada was a tumultuous period, shaping the region's history. In 1988, amid mounting violence, Yasser Arafat presented himself as a statesman to the West. The UN granted the PLO observer status, and the Bush administration opened the door to dialogue if Arafat renounced terrorism. On December 16, Arafat claimed to acknowledge Israel's right to exist and renounced all forms of terrorism. As the Intifada ensued and Arafat proved that he lied about Israel's right to exist by publicly aligning with Saddam both after the invasion of Kuwait and throughout Iraq's Scud missile attacks on Israel. Was the US so naive to believe a terrorist's words? Or was it a calculated move in a complex geopolitical chess game? Are you intrigued by the twists of history? Then let's uncover the Oslo Accords. The Oslo Accords of 1993 were supposed to be a game-changer. The Palestinian Authority was created with Yasser Arafat as its chief executive. But what went wrong? Despite promises of democratic reform, the Palestinian Authority held elections once, never again after Arafat's overwhelming win. And those pledges to amend the Palestinian National Charter to remove calls for Israel's destruction, they never materialized. The Clinton administration pressured Arafat, but his actions were a facade. The PA noted provisions for nullification but never produced a revised charter. Meanwhile, Arafat's public statements in Arabic and the education system in the territories continued to instill hostility. The dream of the Oslo Accords was marred by broken promises and unmet commitments. History isn't just about events, it's about understanding the complexities. Stay curious, friends. This is why President Clinton's Camp David summit was a game-changer in 2000. In July 2000 at Camp David, President Clinton took a daring step to achieve peace in the Middle East. He brought together Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat and Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. Under intense U.S. pressure, Israel made an unprecedented offer, a Palestinian state covering 90% of the West Bank and all of Gaza, with East Jerusalem as its capital. A pivotal moment in history, right? But here's the twist. Arafat rejected the offer, a move that left many baffled and believing he was utterly devoted to Israel's destruction. This bold attempt by Clinton remains one of the most dramatic and controversial efforts in the quest for peace in the Middle East, a moment where history held its breath and the future of two nations hung in the balance.
Look, I worked on this hard. And the only time Yasser Arafat didn't tell me the truth was when he promised me he was going to accept the peace deal that we had worked out, which would have given the Palestinians a state on 96% of the West Bank and 4% of Israel, and they got to choose where the 4% of Israel was. So they would have the effect of the same land of all the West Bank. They would have a capital in East Jerusalem. They would have I can hardly talk about this. And they would have equal access all day, every day, to the security towers that Israel maintained all through the West Bank up to the Golden Heights. All this was offered, including, I will say it again, a capital in East Jerusalem and 2 of the 4 quadrants of the old city of Jerusalem, confirmed by the Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and his cabinet. And they said no. And I think part of it is that Hamas did not care about a homeland for the Palestinians. They wanted to kill Israelis and make Israel uninhabitable.
Yasser Arafat, hailed as a peace icon, harbored quite different plans for Israel. In 1996, Yasser Arafat, the Palestinian leader, addressed an Arab audience in Stockholm. He boldly proclaimed, "We plan to eliminate the state of Israel and establish a purely Palestinian state. We will make life unbearable for Jews by psychological warfare and population explosion." His vision was clear: take over everything, including all of Jerusalem. 2 years later, on Egyptian television, Arafat elaborated on his strategy. He referenced the Hudaybiyah Agreement, an Islamic treaty perceived as a strategic pause. It was a calculated approach, aimed at gaining an advantageous position before resuming conflict. Arafat's words and actions starkly contrasted with his global image as a peacemaker. It's a reminder that history often holds deeper, more complex truths beneath the surface.